Good evening, everyone, and I must thank Saravana Raja for having me here. I think he has already covered all that I wanted to speak. Nariya avare sollitaru. So the first time I met him was as a journalist when he had written a story about his experience of. There's a problem about seeing me? Yeah, better. Yeah, I think this should be fine. Yeah. So அவர் வந்து ஒரு ஸ்கார்ஃபில் வந்து நாங்கள் எவ்ரி இயர் we give out a award for well written articles on mental health, more to encourage journalists to write on mental health related issues. So அதில் வந்து he was one of the winners of that award a few years back. ஸோ அப்போ தான் அவரை ஃபஸ்ட் டைம் நான் மீட் பண்ணேன். அப்போ தெரியாது, ஐ நியூ நத்திங் அபவுட் him, I only knew his article. But now, seeing him now, I think it's a brilliant effort to have a self-support organization coming out to discuss about mental health related issues. Years ago, I think 2004 5 Scarfla, we had an initiative called Shapes. It never took shape because the stigma was so strong. All those people who wanted to come together were willing to do that, and we wanted the group to be away from SCARF. It can't be constantly inside SCARF, and we can't be running the self-help group for them. So we wanted it to move out of SCARF. So, and the day we did it, it died. So because primarily it was the stigma, people were not willing to come forward to talk about it, and we now it's so nice to see this. And here I must say that on May 24th of this year, which happens to be the World Schizophrenia Day, SCARF is launching a hangout space. We have an office in Greaves Road, so that space is going to be launched primarily for weekly gatherings of persons, any service user with a psychotic illness, for them to find a place to come and spend a few hours. They can come there to just talk to each other, or listen to music, watch a movie, or just chit chat, or have a serious discussion with professionals who are also likely to be there, either a social worker or a psychologist or volunteers. We just want to try out a space where because we have noticed that most of our clients, especially those with serious mental health conditions, they don't have any outing. In fact, coming to SCARF on a daily basis might be their only outing that they have. So families do not feel comfortable taking them out for gatherings in the family or any marriages and other functions. So we seriously thought there must be some space, a safe space for them to come out, and so we plan to organize that, launch it next month. So I think I will definitely invite you people to use that space, which would be for your meetings also. That would be it's a little more central, than this place. This is a lovely place, I completely agree, but then okay. So when Saravana Raja asked me to speak to this audience today, he had a specific request. He said, I need to talk about schizophrenia, because he felt that the group needed to know more about schizophrenia, as more people with schizophrenia are looking forward to join the group. So before I move on to that, I think a short note about Dr. Sharda Menon. Most of you here are too young to know Dr. Menon. She was very young when she died, just 98. So and she lived a complete life. She lived till she died. That is the kind of person she was. I think knowing her biography is, she was born in Kerala, and she traveled all over that is our madam. And this was Mr. Gopalakrishna Gandhi, his statement on her death in December 2021. Yeah, we can move on. Okay. Yeah, so this is the village in Kerala where she was born. Her parents. I think she was the 7th or the 8th daughter among 11 siblings. So, and her youngest sibling was Professor M.G.K. Menon. He was the National Scientific Advisor. A lot of people know about him. And then, for her, it's a long story. It will be a 2-hour lecture if we have to trace Dr. Menon's life. But then, she had schooling in several parts of the country. Her father kept moving. I think he was a judge in in the High Court of the country. And then getting into medicine itself was a big challenge in those years. And then she went on to do her medicine in Madras Medical College. And after that, she branched off to psychiatry, where she was trained in the Nimmans, and probably she was the first candidate who was admitted into the institute. So the family was not very happy about her choosing to take up psychiatry. But then I think the day she entered psychiatry, her anti-stigma campaign for serious mental illnesses began, and it continued even after she died. This is the first batch of her colleagues in the General Hospital, Chennai. And well, she married quite late. It was in her 40s that she got married to Mr. Srikumar Menon IPS, and I have never met him. No, he died before I even knew Madam, somewhere in 2002. And in his honor, she instituted a road safety award in the Chennai traffic police department. So now this is the famous Institute of Mental Health, Chennai, where she was one of the longest serving superintendents. And this was, you can see her there sitting. If you notice, in all her pictures, till the day she died, even when she was in the coffin lying there was not a strand of hair that was out of place. She was so impeccably dressed, very simple, but she used to come, when she walks into the room, she will just sail into that room, and that smile was always a radiant one. So, and she was responsible for all those benefits that the Institute of Mental Health and the state mental health services today, what we have is because of this one lady's work. She started a separate occupation therapy unit. She started the vocational training center in IMH. I don't know how many of you are aware. There was a time when the Institute of Mental Health had its vocational training center she started the baking unit there. The bread that was made there was the breakfast for all the government hospitals in Chennai. It used to go from there. I don't know if that is still happening, but it was, in those days, I think there was a 2 lakh turnover every month. That was the kind of work she was able to generate from using the inmates in the hospital. And there were a lot of blocks were built, and the OP block was started. And then, she was responsible for psychiatry departments being opened in all the district headquarters hospitals. That was probably the basis of the district mental health program, which all came later. She was working for that for such a long time. She was a lady who will never take a no for an answer from anyone. She knows how to keep nudging people to do what she wants them to do. And she started appointing professionally trained social workers for ward management in the IMH. And talking about the kitchen, the kitchen was modernized, and once when the kitchen staff went on strike, they went on strike because of her, because non-vegetarian food was a routine stuff. Every week they used to have, but then she noticed that as usual, no, government staff, no, they were cheating on the weight and the volume of yeah, they were injecting water into the meat and making it appear heavier and doing certain things which she found out. So she said, no more non-vegetarian food in IMH. It'll be replaced by as much of eggs and protein that can be added to the diet. And so the warders tried instigating patients to revolt against her, you know. And one day the kitchen staff, they refused to cook. She stepped into the kitchen and started cooking for all the inmates, and she did it. With the help of the nursing staff, she was able to do it. And till today, there is no non-vegetarian food in the institute. That is how, with an iron hand, she ruled. And then she retired. People in IMH were relieved and also sad. And she was feeling restless, and so she, with the help of few other philanthropists and also colleagues, you know, like Dr. Tara and Dr. Rajkumar, Gariali Rajkumar, they all together were, they were discussing in the OPD of the GH, and then they decided we will start an NGO, because it was a huge lacuna. There was no space other than the IMH for managing persons with serious mental health problems like schizophrenia and reintegrating them into the society. So that was the biggest lacuna, and so she decided we have to do something to fill that. And SCARF was born. So that's an acronym for Schizophrenia Research Foundation. It was actually Schizophrenia Care and Research Foundation. And then for some technical administrative issues, the care was removed from the name, but then it was never removed from the thought, you know, it was always there. So SCARF was born, and it became the first NGO in Asia to be started for the cause of mental health. And the amount of work she has done to have all our 3 centers up and running till now is phenomenal. If she knew that the Shankaracharya is camping somewhere in Virudunagar, the next minute she will get onto into a car or bus and go to that place and walk how many kilometers she didn't care, no, to go reach him. It was from the Kanchi Mutt that we got the land on which our residential facility in Mahabalipuram now stands, and through him the residential facility in the residential facility in Thiruverkad, the female center, also stands. And Madam Jayalalitha gave us the land in Annanagar where our main office operates from. And academics and research were very important both for her and her successor, Dr. Tara. And so SCARF was always associated with a lot of academic activity. And so we had our first seminar on schizophrenia research. That was way back in '85, just within a year after SCARF was formed. And yeah, these are some of the pictures. That is Dr. Tara standing on Madam's right, along with the governor. So this is the center at Annanagar on the 2nd floor, which is a residential center, and it was started in 2003, which was named after Dr. Sharada Menon, and yes, you guessed right, and that is me standing in the corner. So since rehabilitation was one of her passions throughout, you know, she was responsible for starting the Indian chapter of the WAPR, the World Association of Psychosocial Rehabilitation. So this is with her, with people in Paris. And then the honors came. 1992, she got her Padma Bhushan, and then she got an honorary DSc. And for the 20th anniversary of SCARF, we had Professor Dr. APJ coming as the chief guest, and actually that was the launch of our anti-stigma campaign along with the WPA, the World Psychiatric Association. SCARF was chosen to run the WPA's anti-stigma campaign, and he inaugurated it. And I think more than Dr. Kalam coming and talking, the impact that it had on the students who attended the event, and the media coverage, it did wonders. It helped a lot in that period. Yeah, and then she got another award from the president. And her last award, the last meeting that Madam Jayalalitha had before she became unwell was with Dr. Sharda Menon. Yeah, and in her honor, we have an oration which is part of our International Conference on Schizophrenia, which happens every 2 years, and it's likely to happen in a few months now. And as part of that oration, there have been speakers from across the globe. These are all the big names in psychosocial rehabilitation have addressed the first 3 sessions. And Dr. Menon was one of the biggest learners, and this book is something, a treasure for her. We came out with the book just before she died. It was just a compilation of all that has happened from the day SCARF began till today, and how many of us have been with this organization for so long, and more our experiences and all the journey together. So this was something that Madam cherished and was so happy to read it. Yeah, food and movies, 2 of her poisons. You know, she was a foodie. You know, she could eat. She enjoyed cooking. She enjoyed eating, and she never hesitated to ask. You know, one of my I never remembered this. One of my staff in the VTC, she told me, like, Madam called her one day and said, make some cutlets and bring it for me. This happened about a year ago, in the middle of the lockdown. So she made cutlets and took it there, and Madam tasted it and said, Nalla pannirukka Renuka, இது வந்து நீ எப்பவோ வந்து மங்களா உனக்கு இந்த ரெசிபி சொல்லி கொடுத்தான்னு நீ சொன்னதானே. She remembered everything like an elephant, you know. She would never forget anything. That was, she could recall names of people she had met 20 years back and rattle them out, you know, very effortlessly when I will be struggling to find the name of the person I met last week. She was so updated, so in touch with what was happening in the city. She once told me that she goes out in her car, of course with the driver, around the city once a month or once in 2 months, just to have an idea about what are all the changes that have happened in the landscape of the city. No, she just used to go around and she will remember all the buildings that have gone and the new ones that have come up. And once, you know, when she noticed that I had changed my car, she had about 15-20 questions about the engine, the model, the difference between my old car and new car. I felt like just dropping her and run away. You know, she is so updated and knowledgeable about everything under the sun, not just psychiatry. And she was an avid reader. She read till her last day. And the other very, very, I mean, forget about her academic achievements, all that, you know, it's all very, she might have did it out of her own interest. But then as a human being, she was someone who very effortlessly loved people. You know, she could love people to the extent, you know, she maintained school friends. Imagine, she was 98. She maintained school friends from her pre-independence years till for 75-80 years. Because when we had the memorial function for Madam, her schoolmates' sons, grandchildren, they sent notes for us because they all know Sharda auntie. She maintained contact with her schoolmates, her college mates so much, and she was a fantastic letter writer. She wrote letters to everyone, and all of us at SCARF, you know, that is one of the best prized possessions that we have. Personal notes written by her when she wants to appreciate us for anything that we have done. 2 such letters that I received from her was once when we organized her 90th birthday. It was a surprise for her, and so she was so touched. She wrote a letter to me and everyone at SCARF thanking us for that function. And the other letter was when SCARF initiated the Maitri Awards. You know, every year we give out an annual award for family members of persons with serious mental illness, specifically schizophrenia, for going out of the way in taking care of their family member. Or we have had some interesting array of caregivers from friends, neighbors, who have really gone out of the way to take care of their the person with illness. And she was actually unwell when we first organized the first event. She wouldn't say, we couldn't prevent her from coming. She said, no, I will be there. And she was there to give away the first award. And she wrote a very loving letter. And letters are not like what we type these days, making innumerable mistakes, correcting, rewriting. It is in legible black. She has a personal stationery and ink. There will not be one correction, not one word out of place, in very neat, legible writing. I mean, she maintained it till the end. Very, very meticulous and very, very, what do you call that? She was very particular about doing things perfectly. And when we took her once, about 4 years back, to our residential center, the Bhavish Bhavan, she loves going there. So we wanted her to judge a cooking contest we had organized for all the inmates there. My God, we had we could see what she was as an examiner in her teaching days. She made each one of them tell us the recipe in detail, the ingredients, the proportions. She had to take, she wrote, seriously, she took notes for all the items that were presented. And then she never had any qualms about saying, no, this is not good. This is good, I will give a prize for that. She was very, very casual about it. And the patients loved the way she interacted with them, and she tasted everything that they gave her. Movies, yes, she was even watching web series on OTT before she died. She was very updated. She could effortlessly get into a Zoom call, participate in webinars. That way she lived till the end. And but she didn't die a very happy lady, because she still felt there is a lot left to be done and there was no time left for her to do it. So that the need for doing some more for the cause of rehabilitation was there even when she died. And that is what people at SCARF, we now believe that we have our responsibility to carry that torch and move forward. So we still miss her, and we will continue to miss her. So schizophrenia was always Madam's passion. Making people with schizophrenia go back to living normal lives is what was the only goal of her life. So now, what is schizophrenia? I think the commonest thing that people know about schizophrenia is what we call as paithyam in common parlance. Like the person who is labeled mad is generally a person with schizophrenia. I think we all know what health is about, but here, this specifically applies to schizophrenia, because here there is a problem, because his symptoms are affecting his life or her life, and also bothers people around him or her. So it is a psychotic illness, and the term schizophrenia was coined by Eugen Bleuler. It was earlier thought, I think the previous name for schizophrenia was dementia precox. That is, it was just the brain was prematurely aging. That was what it was thought to be. But then later, it was found out it is not that, and which is why a new name was labeled as schizophrenia. So there is a deterioration of the entire personality, because as you know, most mental health conditions, we have only 3 major components. We have the thought, we have the behavior, and we have the emotions. In an affective disorder, like a bipolar disorder, it is the mood or the emotions that are primarily affected. But in schizophrenia, it is the thought which is primarily affected. But when the thought gets affected, automatically the triad of thought, emotion, and behavior gets distorted. It is going to have an impact on the emotion, it is going to have an impact on the behavior. So it affects all the three components, which is why it leads to so much of personality deterioration and difficulty in normal living. So they have a problem in understanding what is real and what is unreal, problem in thinking logically and having a proper emotional response to situations and acting in social situations. So I think this is all that we need to know about it. It is just 1% of the population worldwide, but when we look at our population, it's a huge number. 1% of our population it's a big number. I think we can do the math, right? So usually it affects both genders, but then there is a slight male preponderance, and it starts in the men a little earlier than women. And in our country especially, women have a better prognosis than men when it comes to schizophrenia. I think there are, as Saruna Raja was mentioning, it is not just the biology, that it is more to do with the social and cultural aspects. No woman can sit at home doing nothing. That luxury is never there, right? So usually it's between 15 to 35, but we do see some people becoming unwell at around 45. And yeah, there are a lot of myths about, like, nobody is safe and nobody can say that I will not get schizophrenia. Anybody across race, caste, creed, educational status, socioeconomic status, anybody can get the illness. Again, causes, like for all mental health conditions, a single identifiable cause is still not there. It is still a multifactorial condition. We have several reasons why one person can get the illness, and so we generally use the stress vulnerability hypothesis. So somebody is vulnerable, which will be the gene. So, and there are some other external agencies, like external factors like the environmental or the psychosocial factors, which can cause, when we are talking about those stressors and psychological factors, those are factors which will operate in the developing period, when the brain is still developing, in the younger years, in the teens, when a lot of pruning in the brain happens. So then that can lead to a lot of neurodevelopmental abnormalities, which can result in improper biochemical imbalance, and that can lead to schizophrenia. So not everybody with a stressor is going to develop schizophrenia. There has to be a vulnerability, which will be the genetic loading and a structural issue with the brain. So we can have many phases. In the early phases, people just feel that things are not okay. Something around me is not sounding right, So there is a discomfort, a general discomfort with things around them. Why am I hearing an echo? Or is it just me? Is there an echo? Okay, right. Okay. So there are very vague symptoms where people don't know, they are not able to put their finger to something, but there is still a sense of discomfort that something that's happening around me doesn't sound quite right. And then the clear psychotic symptoms can come, which will be in the acute phase. That is when the routine life gets affected. All the day-to-day activities become difficult. Sleep becomes a challenge. Even simple things like having a bath or eating food, everything can become a challenge. And then once the acute phase is over, the recovery phase can happen, and it gradually starts improving. But this can vary from person to person. We can never predict anybody's recovery on day one. So what are those early signs? As I said, since it starts in the teens, especially in school and college, the commonest thing that we will see will be a academic decline. Someone who has been doing extremely well in their studies before can start getting very poor marks, fail exams or skip tests because they don't know what to write, give a blank paper. So these things can be just the beginning, but then it may take a few months or sometimes even more than a year for someone to actually develop a full-blown illness. There can be some withdrawn behavior. They may tend to distance themselves from their close circle. They may tend to distance themselves from the family. There can be a lot of confusion in their thought process. They can feel a little irritable, or they can be very dull. There can be mood swings. They can feel anxious. But the challenge here is all this can happen as part of normal growing up in our adolescence. Anybody who has a teen kid at home will definitely can understand my personal woes, right? So, and then that can become slowly, that anxiety can become excessive fear. There can be a lot of doubts, doubts about everything that's happening around, which means you're not able to trust anybody, you're not able to talk freely with anybody. That may include parents, that may include siblings, that may include friends, teachers. It can be anyone. So there can be a lot of anger, missing school, staying behind your locked doors the whole day, not wanting to come out to even have meals. That can all be happening. And when there is a full-blown illness, we can have two kinds of symptoms, what we call positive and negative. There's nothing positive about any of those symptoms. It's just that what we say as positive is, those are experiences that somebody will have which others normally don't have. Those will be the delusions and the hallucinations and stuff like that. Negative symptoms are things that all of us are expected to have, but these people do not have. Where you have to have a range of emotions on your face. You need to have an interest in doing things. Those are things that these people will not have. So those are conspicuously absent, and that is what we mean by negative symptoms. So, yeah. Now, these are sometimes how some people who have been able to put it in a picture. So these are the various kinds of methods that they can experience. Hearing a loud voice, someone talking to them from somewhere or within their head, or it can be a feeling that somebody is having some hidden cameras inside the room and watching them throughout. I have a young girl who constantly believed till a few months ago that there were hidden cameras in her restroom. And for years, she has never been able to switch on the light in the restroom because she felt that the cameras were there right in the sink of the closet. So she had such a trauma every time to use the restroom. This did not change even if they changed the house or changed the closet in the bathroom. And she could never switch on the light and remove her clothes completely when she had to bathe or change. So she constantly believed that this was happening, and she will always come to us with a request, help me find a detector to trace those cameras. And she has argued with us, wanting us to accompany her to the police station to lodge a complaint because she felt it was some particular person who had installed the camera. So these were, it was so difficult to convince. The firm belief that she had was beyond any reason. So these delusions can be of many kinds, Everybody around are talking about me. When you feel that everything is a reference to you. People can interpret all those scrolls that come on TV, especially in the music channels. All that Anu, I love you, or I miss you, all those messages can be misinterpreted as it is for them. And one interesting person I will never forget is the mother came very upset that my daughter, this client, she makes excellent pickles. So she made the pickles in the afternoon, and in the evening, she threw the entire jar into the dustbin, saying she won't use it. So her explanation for that was that evening, after she had finished making the mango pickle, there was a program on TV where I think a celebrity cook was teaching how to make mango pickles. She felt that is just a message to tell her, you don't know how to make it properly. So she was terribly upset, she decided to discard the entire batch. So this is how they can interpret any message that they come across, right? Grandeur, yes, I am God. Recently I came across a forward. We have a difference. My wife and I have a difference. She thinks she is God, but I don't. The same way, here the person can think that he or she is God, or they have extreme powers because of which they can do things that others cannot, and that can lead to high risk behaviors. There are people who have tried jumping from a height simply because they believe they won't die. So they end up getting injured anyway, right? In fact, I had a young girl. In her grandiose delusion, she felt that it was her responsibility to make a golden bust of Mahatma Gandhi and keep it on the marina, because what was there was only a stone statue, which is very disrespectful to the father of the country. So she wanted the family to sell off all the gold that was in the house and give her the money to do that. When they didn't do that, she threw a ruckus in the house. She felt so hurt that her family was not being patriotic. That was her interpretation of the whole thing. So, and religious delusions are again very common. People believing the black magic part also can come into it, but there are other kinds of religious delusions. Believing that he or she is a part of God, they are in an incarnation, or they have some kind of a connect with some religious thing. If I can quote an example, I don't know if you people remember, last year there was this case of a couple, a teacher and her husband. Both of them were very well-educated professors in colleges. They did some puja, believing that they could kill their daughters and bring them back to life. Those are a kind of religious delusions which can really be unpleasant. Somatic delusions, jealousy. That is a very common thing we see among partners. Husband believing that the wife is unfaithful to them, or the wife believing that the husband is unfaithful to him. This is a very common thing. Unfortunately, this is one delusion that generally never comes for consultation, because people have too much of stigma and shame for them to talk about it. But the bizarreness of this delusion of jealousy can be to such an extent. A young girl was once referred for counseling after a suicidal attempt when I was in the railway hospital. So the suicidal attempt by this daughter, when we spoke to her, she said her father had announced the previous day that he will not spend a pie for her wedding. She was the third daughter, and he said, I have married off the other two daughters. For this girl, I will not spend a pie. And the girl was very upset because the father literally disowned her, and so she attempted to kill herself, and then she was hospitalized, saved. So when we spoke to the mother became very, very guarded. She was not willing to open up, and then she broke down and cried. She said, all of a sudden for the past 3-4 years, my husband has been saying, this daughter is not mine. I thought he was saying that in anger because he is not having money, but he is very clear, this daughter was not born to me. You cannot have her in the list of my family members at all. No, this was the reason why he was refusing. So we convinced the father to come and meet us. And his story was, before this girl was born, we were living in a house and some construction was happening in that house. So this man, once when he came back from work to have his lunch, the worker was asking for water from his wife, and the wife came and gave him water in a small sombu. That's what he said. So I was waiting for him to continue the story, and he said, "Avladhan doctor." I said, "So what?" I said, "Adnaladan solren, this child is not mine." It is bizarre, right? There is no rhyme or reason to that, but that was his belief. It's not like, he was not a bad person. He never thought like that about his wife before. But again, this did not happen recently. The incident happened sometime in the past, but the delusion came very recently. So, but then with treatment, he recovered fully and the daughter got married. That was a happy story. Somatic delusions, we have beliefs that some part of the body is not working. Now, in recent times, we see a lot of people complaining about having a chip in the brain. Somebody has implanted a chip, or after every surgery, they come back and say, Doctor, and the surgery பண்ணும்போது அவங்க எதையோ உள்ள வச்சு தைச்சிட்டாங்க. Thanks to all our crime movies, people have all kinds of thoughts like that. And persecution and control, they can come together. Control, people feel that there is an external agency that is completely controlling them, not allowing them to do anything on their own. In fact, one person I knew will hold the bladder for hours together simply because that control has not permitted them to use the restroom. So the control can be so distressing. They can't do anything. And the control can also make them do things, going and asking them to hit somebody or break a thing, that also can happen. Persecution is the commonest, feeling that somebody is trying to harm, somebody is trying to kill me, my food is being poisoned. Those are the common things. We still have people who don't eat food given by someone from the outside because they don't trust. They feel some black magic could have been added to that. Some husbands don't eat what their wives cook. Some wives don't eat what the husbands bring from outside. So it is all that can be a sign of persecution. So if all of you are movie buffs like me, I think you would have watched Russell Crowe's Beautiful Mind. It's a nice depiction of schizophrenia. Yeah, and hallucinations is what you keep. It's an experience that is happening within the head, but then experienced as if it is coming from outside. So it can be anybody's voice, or I'm talking about auditory hallucinations here because the voices are the hallmark in schizophrenia. Now, other hallucinations are less common. We generally don't have any abnormal smell or anything. If that happens, it's likely to be because of other causes. Right? So the voices can say anything. It can be a simple conversation like, how are you, what are you doing, stuff, or it can be you look so stupid in this dress, you don't deserve to live. It can be like that. It can be anything, or it can be 2 or 3 people discussing about them, calling them names or asking them to die. It can be anything. Now, that is a visual hallucination where this person is seeing another figure there. So the negative symptoms, as I already said, things that we have to have: a range of emotions, some interest and motivation to do work, an ability to enjoy activities, that pleasure. When all that is absent, we call that negative symptoms. But all this together leads to a lot of difficulty and distress in functioning. That is where the challenge comes. So how do we manage? Again, medicines happen to be the primary mode of treatment when it comes to major mental illnesses like schizophrenia. And ECT is another often abused treatment in movies, but it is actually a life-saving, excellent treatment, especially in conditions like a catatonic schizophrenia, where the person can be completely mute, not eating, not moving. They can develop a lot of physical problems as well. And just 1 or 2 sittings of ECT can be life-saving. They can completely recover and be up and active. So, and ECT is a very safe thing. It is like a minor surgical procedure which is done with an anesthetist under anesthetic drugs in an operation theater with all the paraphernalia, and not like that as is shown in movies. Somebody walking with a electrode and placing it from behind you. That doesn't happen. And we have all the other things like psychosocial rehabilitation and vocational rehabilitation, Now we have a lot of cognitive remediation therapies. All this is just to help those people to get back into their functional role in the society. Yeah, but then the take-home message is the primary form of maintenance therapy is pharmacological. So, okay, that is John Nash, and okay, these are all, that is wife of Lincoln. And if we want to see some local movies on schizophrenia, I would recommend just these two movies. Both were not very popular, but then they were very well done on schizophrenia, worth watching. Again, for people who love Hindi movies, 15 Park Avenue is a brilliant film on, I would recommend that above Beautiful Mind and above Kudaikul Malai or Mandira Punnagai. 15 Park Avenue was a brilliant movie which covers schizophrenia in a total 360-degree coverage of the myths, the misconceptions, how knowledge need not necessarily become acceptance. You know, the family, someone who deals with nuclear physics, but still there will be a puja going on at home to send away all the evil spirits from the person who is affected. It was brilliantly done. So I think I will stop there. Again, when we intervene early, at least 1/3 of the people recover completely, while another 1/3 can have relapses. I'm not saying they will have, but they can have relapses. And it is only 1/3 or 33% who have a chronic continuous illness throughout their lives. So we always work towards increasing that 66% to more, you know. So that small number we can never completely do away with, because it is more biological than other reasons. Yes, now this is more important than all other things. Schizophrenia is not split personality. It is not a contagious illness. It is not a measure of one's intelligence, and it is not because of sins. It is not because of lack of mental strength. It's not that weak people develop schizophrenia. The strongest person with the brightest mind can still have schizophrenia. So these are all the things, you know, like avarungalukku endha prachaniyume illa, avlavu buddhisali, how do you say he has schizophrenia, is the first thing that people ask. So thank you very much for your patient time.